Really happy to be here, and obviously to be in such great company with all of you here, and hopefully I can share some of my experiences with you, and you won't make the same mistakes that I've made along the way. So I'm going to start with a little bit about IHG here first. Well, if that doesn't make us all want to get on an airplane and go someplace fabulous, nothing will. So just to give you a little bit about IHG, because many of you don't know who we are, let me just get a show of hands. Who has an IHG Rewards Club membership? Well, that's pretty darn good. Good to see. So IHG has been this evolution, and we don't have a name the same way Marriott and Hilton do. Those were family names that obviously came with a legacy of those families. IHG has been this brand that has been put together with many acquisitions over the years. Obviously started with our iconic brand of Holiday Inn, but then has been this hodgepodge of different brands that have come together, and we adopted the name IHG in 2000s, and that was with the acquisition of InterContinental Hotel. And the first reference there from 1777 was about Bass, and Bass, obviously, many of you know, is a beer company. That was one of the owners of our hotel company at one point in our history. So we have a very interesting past with lots of great brands and lots of great owners. And this year alone, we've launched, in the last, 2 years, we've launched 3 new brands. So we're really proud of the journey we're on here. As Adam mentioned, we have more than 5,600 hotels worldwide, and that spans over 100 countries. So you can imagine the different challenges we have with 400,000 employees across the globe. Not all corporate employees. We are a franchise business, which means that we have independently owned and operated hotels. In the US alone, we have about, I think we're up to about 4,000 hotels in the US, and about 2,500 independently owned and operated hotels. So someone like myself could go out and buy the franchise for a Holiday Inn Express and then start running it. So you can imagine the challenges from a technology standpoint and from a brand standard standpoint in terms of keeping our quality where we need it to be. What we're really excited about right now is we have 1,900 hotels in our pipeline. So a third of what our current brands are around the globe, we've got a third more coming to you in the future. And this is the biggest pipeline we've had since 2008. So obviously the economy is doing well, and we're progressing along with it. So really happy about that. So let's talk a little bit about IHG's transformation, because I hear that is the topic of this conference, and tell you what we've been going through. So in 2017, we announced a new CEO. Our previous CEO, fantastic gentleman, and he's actually just accepted a chairman of a board position in the UK. He retired, and part of what the board was looking for, and our chairman of the board, was looking for someone who was going to start a big transformation at IHG. We had been going through a process in the last 10 years of really becoming asset light. So any hotels that we owned, we were selling. And it was extremely profitable. I think I'll probably screw up the numbers here, but I think it was the Hong Kong InterContinental. About 3 years ago we sold, and I may screw it up here, but I think the number was around $20 million. We sold the Paris InterContinental recently too in the last 5 years. And those sales were creating a tremendous amount of cash for the company, which then went back to shareholders, and obviously our investors were extremely happy with us. But that was drying up. And we brought in a new CEO who is internal in the company. He's been with the company 20 years. He knows the hospitality business. But he was really chomping at the bit to change who we were. And he saw the future. He saw a future that was a technology future, but he also saw the future in terms of the Marriott and Starwood recent acquisition and merger, and said, if we're going to stay in the top 3, we have to start doing something different. And we've got to do a couple things. One, we've got to get more relevant for our guests, and especially with the digital era that we're entering. 2, we've also got to be more relative for our owners. We have got to be the company that they choose and want to come to buy their next brand. For those of you who don't understand, flipping a McDonald's to, let's say, a Wendy's is a little more complicated than flipping a flag of a hotel. Because in a hotel, typically you have all of your technology in that hotel, and you flip the flag. That's what we call it in this industry. So you put on a new banner on the front. All your employees are the same. A lot of your internal systems are the same. And now you're just selling on a new reservation system that syncs up with your internal systems. So creating a value proposition for owners and making sure we're staying relevant to them and we're providing the right ROI is critical to our success. So that became part of our new mantra in terms of thinking about our future. The other thing we knew we had to do is we had to create more brands that were relevant for our guests and making sure we were focused on that. So we set out on that journey, and our objective was to grow 2x by 2020, basically growing our net system size by 2x in the next 3 years. And we are, I'm proud to say, more than halfway through that. So by 2020, we'll have achieved that if we stay on the trajectory and we get those 1,900 hotels open. But as part of that, we had to go through a real gut check in terms of how we were going to do this and what we were going to do in each business unit. And specifically within technology, we had been in a situation where we'd gone through an evolution of doing tech for technology's sake, going out and chasing all those fun little gadgets. You know, you saw the IoT out there, and let's go try mobile door locks. Let's go try Alexa. Let's go make a whole technology focused hotel. And what we realized is that we had all these competing priorities, and we really had to focus in on what was important to those two constituencies, the guest and the owner. And we had to figure out how to do it faster, but we also had to figure out how to do it cheaper, because we weren't Marriott and we weren't Hilton. We didn't have the system size, the number of hotels that they have, to create the revenue so that we could just do lots of cool things and go out there and try a lot of different things. So we had to think about, how do we do this differently? We also had to figure out, how do we do it faster, but in a more nimble environment? All of us in this room have done those big tech transformations that take 3 to 5 years. Sometimes you're replacing core systems that take forever. I recently just went through replacing our central reservation system. So you saw in the video, we were the first to have a central reservation system. That central reservation system was written in 1965. Yeah, the year I was born. That's how old it is. And literally, this year, we turned it off. It took 5 years to get that system rewritten in a current cloud technology platform, and then to switch 5,600 hotels over to that new system. That is not easy, but that's not nimble. That was 5 years. We were doing nothing else in our central reservation system. We had to change how that was all going to work. We took a people, process, tools approach to this. And the first thing that I did when I became CIO was say to my CEO, what exactly are you trying to do? And he laid out to me, these are the types of things he was concerned with, and what he was seeing and what he was not seeing, and how he wanted to change how we use technology in the company. And we both started about the same time, so he got appointed the CEO role, and then he appointed me as the CIO, and we started working together to figure out what he wanted. And initially, when he set out with this transformation, he thought he wanted to outsource our technology department. He said, it's just not working. I'm not getting the value out of the organization. We're not moving fast enough. We're not implementing new solutions in our hotels. Just outsource the whole thing. And I want you to go work with the suppliers, go find the cheapest solution you can find, and go make it so. After a lot of conversation, I realized that's not really what he wanted. What he wanted is he wanted solutions faster. He wanted us to work with our business partners better. And he wanted the transparency he needed to know where we're investing those dollars. We have over a $400 million budget in technology at IHG, and he has absolutely no visibility into where that money's going and what levers to pull. So in looking at this, I said, okay, the first thing we're going to do is I am not just going to give someone my mess for less. We're going to figure out our sourcing strategy, and we're going to figure out our staffing model, and we're going to do this right. So I went from an organization that was over 50% staff aug, so one-off contractors that we had on from anywhere from a year to 10 years, and really thought about how do we get into a staffing model that ensures that I keep my IP in-house, I keep my subject matter expertise in-house, and most importantly, I keep my business relationship managers in-house so that they can work with our business partners. Then I took the commodity services, and when I say commodity, I don't mean, it's easy to get off the shelf, but think about things like a sock, right? And you've got a bunch of technologists that need to be really deep in this technology, and then they need to reinvent the stuff that there are companies out there that do this for hundreds of other companies. They have the scale, they have the expertise, and they can set it up quickly, and they can do it fast, and they can keep current on it. So those are the kind of things I outsourced. I outsourced commodity development on PeopleSoft and HR systems, and I've kept my mobile app development, I've kept my web app development, I've kept my hotel operator development, but I've gotten rid of the stuff that doesn't add value. It's not our core competencies, and that's what we really looked at with the staffing and sourcing approach that we took. The other thing that we've done with this is I've really set up strategic supplier relationships. We didn't go in this and go, I'm going to spread it like peanut butter. We picked 2 or 3, and we went all in, and we are going to manage the hell out of them. They are going to know, like I was talking to Brenda, like GE manages their suppliers, we're going to make sure that we're getting the value out of these relationships. And if you're going to do this, you've got to make sure you're spending the time getting the value out of those relationships and making sure they're meeting their SLAs. So the other thing we had to spend a lot of time on is to ensure that I wasn't just giving these suppliers my mess for less, was cleaning up my mess. So we took a lot of time to figure out what are the core things that we need to fix, and then getting the investment dollars so that we could fix it. Now, I don't know how many people get involved in the finances of their systems, but one of the things that is a benefit of doing these big transformation initiatives is that you get to take that money below the line. And that really helps when you're going to your executives and you're trying to make the business case for why they should be investing big dollars on these programs. It's part of a big transformation program. We get to take all the investment dollars, and it's about $40 million that we're investing in this transformation. We get to take it all below the line. It doesn't affect your P&L, and it doesn't affect what the shareholders see. So it's a real benefit when you do it as this big program. In this case, we really were looking at modernizing our technology. So we spent a lot of time figuring out what our cloud strategy is, and it's going to be. And we're not going to do this in terms of big bang. We're going to just start lifting and shifting everything up to the cloud. We're doing it very strategically. As we touch applications going forward, they're going cloud first. And it's not going to be everything. Like many of you, we're going to have a hybrid model. We're going to have public, private, and what did I miss? Well, we're going to have all 3. So we're definitely doing everything cloud first, though. We're also going full in on an agile DevOps model. So we've invested significantly in the tools necessary in that space, and we are transforming all of the application development teams so that they're all using the same methodology. One of the things you have to be aware of is that when you're going into this big with these suppliers, you don't want them doing 3 different processes for 3 different teams for their development. So we've decided that everyone's going to get consistent on their tools and their processes, and we're going full in terms of the automation. So the more we automate, the less that we're going to have to worry about people making mistakes. Plus, we're just going to get this out the door faster. It's a lot easier to hit that button and roll that code than it is to rely on people to move everything. As I mentioned, we're really investing a lot in supplier performance management. We're setting up quarterly business reviews with all the suppliers. We're reviewing their SLAs. We're doing joint scorecards. They're rating us. We're rating them to see how we're doing in working with each other. We're looking at the numbers on a weekly, monthly, daily time frame, and we're reviewing those SLAs. I'll tell you, that's one of the hardest things that we've gone through in terms of the change management aspect of this, is getting the leaders who used to lead technology teams to actually start thinking about managing these SLAs. Getting them ingrained in, you have got to treat these suppliers like they are your teams and managing them like they were your teams, and even more so to get the value out of it. And training them and getting them that education and that experience and mentoring them has been probably one of the hardest things that we've had to go through in the transition to more of a supplier model. The other thing that we hadn't done a good job previously at IHG is we're a fairly small company in terms of our IT shop. And I say fairly small, it's, you know, with all the suppliers, it's 1,400 people, but we're still a fairly small company overall. And so a lot of our processes were very much based on subject matter expertise and people knowing people and relationships, because that is what hospitality is about. And so what we realized is that that wasn't going to work when all of a sudden you were turning all of this over to new suppliers down the road. And so we had to really button up our processes. And we had to get our ITSM processes in place, and we had to get a lot of that automated. So we've stood up a service catalog, and we're also putting automation around service requests. And we had to button up things like the basics that many of us, and I've come from financial services, so walking into this, it was a little bit of an eye-opener in that not all companies have incident management, problem management, root cause analysis. And so you have to spend some time getting people understanding what that is and why they're doing it and putting those processes in place. And that took a little bit of work for us as well. We're not done. We're still in the last throes of the actual sourcing transition for the app dev teams. One of the things I did want to point out that I didn't mention earlier is in the sourcing strategy shift, I actually am in the process of hiring 200 additional full-time employees. So when we tell the staff this story, it's actually a great story. Yeah, we did have some layoffs in places that weren't strategic locations, but the story to the team has been, we are opening up 200 positions within the company in technology. Of those positions, we have filled about 30% of them from internal team members that have gotten promotions as part of this. So for our employees internally, it has been a great story in how they can improve their careers, get other opportunities, move up the chain, and continue to grow. One of the things we're still in the middle of, though, that has really been a challenge for us is going from a project mindset to a product mindset. Just quick raise of hands. How many of you really go treat your platforms like products and have like a product financing model? Yeah, there aren't a lot out there. We are in very much a project-funded environment. So I'm going to give you a project, and I want you to go get that project done, and that's how I'm going to fund your teams to get this done. I've gotten, through the course of the last year and a half, I've gotten the top executives understanding why this doesn't work. And for those of you who are living in it, you probably know, but I get these projects, they come in, the work ramps up, I have to go ramp up the staff, I have to go find people that can do this work, then the projects die off, we finish them, we then release the staff, and then we start the cycle over again. And then I've got managers worrying, how do I keep the right people on the projects at the right time and keep things moving, and how can I stay nimble and agile in all of that while we've got this cyclical type of environment going on. It's taken literally a year and a half and a lot of explaining to our senior executives why we need to make this shift. Now I'm in the process of actually doing the financial math with my finance team in showing how do we shift from project to product so that we can keep that watermark on our resources so that we can get stuff out the door faster. It's actually much easier for me to do it internally within my IT team than it is with my product team. So the product team, getting that mind shift change with them and getting them to start thinking about their platforms and products in a life cycle and keeping the pipeline of enhancements and things like that going has been the biggest challenge in terms of this transformation. And we're looking at some different ways, and maybe I'll talk to some of you later who have gone through it with the couple of hands that went up. But that is probably the hardest thing we still have to tackle. The next thing we're still in the middle of is increasing the financial transparency. We have a great finance team. They do a great job of giving us the numbers and showing us how we're doing and what we're doing and when we're doing it. But it's that true transparency of what is the total cost of ownership of those platforms, and how can I show you what that is, and how can I show you the different pivot tables of that so you know what you're spending those on and what your levers are. So we're in the middle of implementing Aptio and a true TBM framework. And we should have that up by probably the August timeframe. We didn't even start that until January. And we will have it fully implemented by this August. And that has been a true change in our organization. I've got people chomping at the bit now that I've told them we're going to give them financial transparency. They're dying to see how much their platforms cost, because then we can have good business decisions and actually have conversations about whether we should retire a platform or not, which is great. And then the final thing we're really working on in the transformation is the business relationship manager role. And this is another tough one because not all engineers are great to talk to people. And we've all seen this, right? I mean, some of my most brilliant architects, I just need to keep them in the back room and don't let them go talk to my product folks. But they create such great systems for us, and they do so many good things. But you've got to bring in those right people and put them in those roles so that you do have the opportunity to be the transformers in your business. Because if you don't have those, your business partners are going to go to someone else who can innovate for them and can work with them. And typically it's going to be those third parties. They're going to go work with Salesforce, who's going to put all these great tools and great people in front of them, and they are going to start creating that innovation for your teams. And then you're going to be left with all the back office work because your teams can't get in front of that. They're not seen as business partners. And this is one of the biggest things that I've got to change in the IHG technology space. And we're chipping away at it. I've got one team that just last week did a great job, put a sales presentation, and they wanted to compete against the two providers that were coming in from the outside. And they went to their business partner and they said, I know this is going to be crazy, but we want a chance to actually respond to that RFP. And we want to be able to put the pitch together and go in front of you just like those other two companies are. And if you give that to me, it'll make a world of difference for morale. But I also think that you're going to see a different team than you've seen in the past. That was last week. This week, they're sitting down and working out the details to actually implement the project because our business partners like them better than the other two suppliers. That's the first time at IHG. So it's starting, and you can do it, but it's going to take a mind shift, and it's going to take different people or a lot of training, which is what we're doing, to get people behaving differently. So while all this has been going on, and we've been going through this crazy transformation, which I am proud to say has actually achieved almost all of its goals, other than the couple of things I just mentioned, we were able to drive out over 10% of cost in the business, so pretty close to $40 million of technology costs that we pulled out last year. And we are on a course to achieve 10% year over year for the next couple of years. Obviously, as demand increases, you'll see some of that savings erode, but our unit cost will stay the same, which is really exciting for a business. That then is allowing us to invest in some really great technologies for the future. And while we've been going through the transformation, we have done some major initiatives and major technology rollouts in the last year. I mentioned that we rolled out our new central reservation system. Really glad to see that IBM mainframe put to bed, and IBM was happy to sell it. I'm sure they found some old, company that needs an upgrade to their mainframe. So that was good. We also created what we're calling IHG Concerto. You saw that in the film earlier, and this was something that I actually had a vision for 5 years ago when I started at IHG, and I was running just the application development team. In the hotel industry, as I mentioned, the hotels have all of these different systems that they use. We have a loyalty system, we have a reservation system, they have a property management system, they have a card key system, they have a revenue management system. And they were all different systems, and we used to have the swivel chair. You'd sit in the chair and you'd go from system to system to system and computer to computer to computer. And coming from financial services where everything is about optimizing and automation and creating workflow improvements, I looked at this and I said, if we could create a single user interface that streamlined all of that information that the hotel operator needs into one system, and it really is lipstick on the pig, right? I mean, we've all seen this. It's a new front end and all the old ugliness is on the back end. But we were able to do this by creating APIs so that we could talk to all those back ends. And we have now just implemented in 5,700 hotels our new user interface called Concerto. It truly is freeing up the operators from being behind that desk where they don't have the time to talk to the guest, and allowing them to get up and actually get from behind the desk, take Concerto on a tablet, and go check guests in line. So we're actually being able to do line breaking now. The only thing we're still testing out is how do we cut a key from the tablet. I'm sure there's a supplier in this room that would be happy to sell me that technology. But it's available. I know we can do it. We just had to get the front end out there first, and then we'll tackle this. And this is really important in our Asia hotels, where your lobby typically isn't in the main floor, and you actually go up to other floors to go check in. So we want to be able to check in a guest in the lobby, give them a key, let them then go up to their hotel room. The other thing that's been a real focus for us is our digital technology. In all IHG hotels throughout the globe, by the end of 2020, we will have a consistent IHG Connect platform. IHG Connect is our guest Wi-Fi. But more important than that, it's the backbone and the foundation for all the bandwidth into the hotel. So we'll be getting rid of all the old networks in the hotel and putting them all on our new technology. This is all Meraki Cisco equipment, all the WAPs throughout the hotel. When you take your device, walk into an IHG hotel, you'll automatically be logged in if you've logged in at any one hotel. So no more, where's my passcode? How do I, get onto the Wi-Fi? Anytime that device goes into another IHG Connect hotel, you'll have that. So that's important because now I have these devices all over the hotel. And not a creepy factor, but a good guest experience is we'll be able to recognize you when you come into the lobby and then greet you as a loyalty member. I hope you will be a loyalty member. And then make sure that we're making you offers, personalized offers that are meaningful to you. So for example, you're walking to the bar. I can send you, hey, because you're a Aspire Elite member, here's 10% off on your next drink. Feel free to use it while you're at the bar. Things like that is what we're trying to implement now, and we're investigating with some of the wireless technology that we've put throughout the hotel. We're also implementing IHG Studio, which is new smart TVs with connectivity to your app. So think about this. Think about when you go into, and I'm sure many of you are global travelers, you go into your hotel room here and you're searching for your favorite station. You wanted to watch Game of Thrones the other night. How do I find it? What station's it on? You're flipping. Oh, finally 275. Okay, finally got to it. Whew, barely made Game of Thrones. Then you go to the Holiday Inn in China or the Crown Plaza or our Wallux, and you go, and now you're looking for that same station. How do you find that station? With our new smart TVs and your IHG app, you'll be able to program your stations and take that from hotel to hotel. How cool is that? So those are the kind of things that we're doing at the same time that we're going through this big transformation. Final one we're working on now, and we're actually working with a great design studio up in Brooklyn, New York. We are working on redesigning our mobile app. So you're going to see in about a year's time, well, probably now about 6 months' time, you're going to see a brand new look and feel to our mobile app. It's going to be a lot sexier, and I know technology isn't always sexy, but we want to make sure it has a great guest appeal. A lot more digital content, so that's the other thing that our guests are screaming for. Better digital content. And when you're a franchise company, that's a challenge. So we're working with the hotels to figure out how do we entice them, or are we going to help them get better pictures of where they're going. One other really cool thing we've worked on while all this has been going on, for those of you who go to China fairly frequently, you know that everything that a consumer does in China, they're doing from their mobile phone. Everything. It is crazy over there. They grocery shop, they order every single meal via their phone, have it delivered. You have, I can't even tell you all the things. I was over there recently, and the number of things that my associates and the team over there were ordering on their phone, I was just like, this is Amazon 10 times. And so what we've done recently is we actually launched, instead of really focusing on the mobile app in China, we've actually integrated our app into the WeChat channel in China. And we have seen a tremendous increase in our number of loyalty guests now using WeChat, as well as our revenue going up. Now, granted, it's a revenue shift. They're shifting from mobile to WeChat. But that's a great transition for us and a great way to really attract the Chinese national consumer and keep them engaged. So I've talked a lot about some of the things that we learned. Obviously, change management being a really important piece of this. We moved a lot of people's cheese through this process. I did a reorg. I put in new leadership. I shifted people from one role to another. And through that, it did two things. One, it impacted employee engagement because everyone was, a little discombobulated with all the moves. But the other thing is teaching people their new roles. And we spent a lot of time and a lot of energy helping people through the change. You have got to communicate. And I have gotten to the point now where I'm doing a monthly town hall. And I do it in 3 locations, and I am personally there talking to the employees every single month because it is so critical that they hear from me on what's going on. There was a lot of concern in the beginning about the layoffs and what's going to happen to my job. That's gone away. But the issues around employee engagement are now, how do we get our work done? How do we work with the suppliers? How do we, what's our role look like? What am I supposed to be doing? So a lot of effort's been going into that. Another key piece of this is don't do it alone. Any big change like this that you don't have the leadership that has experienced this and done this over and over again, I would highly recommend getting a partner to help you. We leveraged Deloitte specifically to help us through the transformation. I could not have gotten my team through this without their help. They were arms and legs behind the scenes, but they were also helping them to make the decisions. They were giving them the information they needed to make the decisions. Make sure you also have a good internal team, obviously. Before I started the transformation, the first thing I did was set up my leadership team. And I obviously couldn't have gotten it done without them. They've been critical through this, and They've been the eyes and ears on the project to make sure everything's happening when it needs to happen. The other thing, though, it's created really good bonding with the team because they've had to go through this together. You know, it's kind of like the Stockholm syndrome. You know, you put everyone in a room and they go through it together, and they're even closer when they get out on the other end. It sounds horrible, but I'm telling you, this team is, they just have done an amazing job, and they've really pulled together. And what they're seeing now is what they've learned from it and how they've gotten to the other side and how much better it is. So that was really exciting. And obviously, we all know this, you have to get support from the top. Without their air cover, when things weren't getting done, you know, you switch your entire data center operations from internal to a supplier. Sometimes they miss the fact that you've got a system down or a hotel network down or something like that. I needed air cover for that. I needed people making sure that someone was watching my back when I was then dealing with that fire, and they were saying, it's okay, we know we're going through a big change, and we knew that there were going to be a couple balls that got dropped. Don't drop the big ones, but we'll cover you on the rest. So really important, and I can't emphasize that enough. Well, thank you, everyone. I really appreciated your attention.
Laura Miller.
Have a great night.